New details about this most mysterious tragedy in the United States have become known. During the election campaign last year, Donald Trump said he would open access to classified documents on the most high-profile and mysterious cases in American history. Earlier, the FBI had already published some materials on the Jeffrey Epstein case, and now the president has continued to fulfill his promise. Part of the archives related to the assassination of John F. Kennedy has become available to the public. The 35th President of the United States, John F. Kennedy, was assassinated in Texas on November 22, 1963. On that day, he visited Dallas in connection with the election campaign. The politician was running for a second term. However, his motorcade never reached the end of the route. Kennedy was killed in the back seat of the car by sniper shots. The first bullet hit him in the neck, the second in the head. Texas Governor John Connally, who was in the same car, was injured. An hour later, it became known that the president had died on the spot. According to the official version, the shooter was Lee Harvey Oswald, a former Marine. He fired 3 shots from the 6th-floor window of the school library and then tried to escape. He was later arrested, but 2 days later he was also killed. During his transfer to the county jail, he was shot dead by nightclub owner Jack Ruby, who suddenly emerged from the crowd. Therefore, Oswald did not have time to appear in court. The investigation was simultaneously conducted by the FBI and the U.S. Secret Service, which is why many details about the case were not made public. And in 1992, by decree of President George H.W. Bush, it was completely classified. Therefore, Kennedy's death gave rise to a lot of conspiracy theories. Some argued that Oswald was only the perpetrator and that more influential forces were behind the crime: intelligence agencies, organized crime, or even the president's political opponents. Others suggested that the assassination was revenge by the CIA for Kennedy's desire to normalize relations with the USSR or withdraw troops from Vietnam. According to opinion polls, more than half of Americans do not believe in the official version of the murder, but instead lean towards one of the hundreds of conspiracy theories. So, Donald Trump promised voters to make U.S. history more transparent and began publishing previously classified materials. People have been waiting for this for decades. I have instructed my team, and tomorrow these files will be available to everyone, Trump told reporters during his visit to the Kennedy Center on March 17th. However, the newly released documents did not provide any definitive answers, though they shed light on certain details. They contain information about Lee Harvey Oswald's activities before the assassination, confirming that he acted alone and was not connected to the KGB or other Soviet services. Reports indicate that Soviet agents did indeed monitor the assassin, but did not influence his actions in any way. In the end, the publication confirmed the skepticism of those who had doubted Trump's claims from the beginning, as no sensational revelations emerged. It is also worth noting that this was not the president's first attempt to declassify archival materials. Back in 2017, he partially released documents related to the John F. Kennedy case. Moreover, in January 2025, he published files concerning Jeffrey Epstein's crime. However, contrary to expectations, they also failed to bring clarity to the billionaire's case. Epstein's address. Book contained Ivanka Trump's contacts and Lolita Express flight routes. The U.S. Department of Justice has released new materials related to the scandalous Epstein case, including a list of his contacts. The document recorded the names of several celebrities, politicians, and entrepreneurs. Among them were the former wife and daughter of Donald Trump, Ivana and Ivanka Trump. On February 27th, U.S. authorities published around 200 pages of documents concerning the investigation into Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. These included his contact list, flight routes of the Lolita Express, and a catalog of evidence collected against him. However, many were dissatisfied as the materials did not provide any groundbreaking revelations or new information. Instead, they merely confirmed Epstein's already well-known connections with figures from political and celebrity circles. Attorney General Pam Bondi stated that the documents were made available at the request of the FBI's regional office in New York. Their publication marks the first phase of disclosing information related to Epstein, suggesting that more details may follow. Epstein's contact list included dozens of famous names: Mick Jagger, Alec Baldwin, Michael Jackson, Naomi Campbell, Courtney Love, former New York Mayor Andrew Cuomo, Senator Ted Kennedy, attorney Alan Dershowitz, businessman David Koch, and many others were, in one way or another, connected to the scandalous entrepreneur. Ivana and Ivanka Trump also appeared in the document. However, Donald Trump's name was not listed. It is important to note that the published contact list is merely Epstein's address book, meaning that those included were simply acquaintances of Jeffrey Epstein. So far, no information has been reported linking any of the mentioned individuals to his crimes. As a result, many internet users who reviewed the documents were left deeply disappointed. Many expected sensational revelations, but the released materials failed to answer key questions about the ties between high-profile figures and Epstein. Furthermore, this address book has drawn public attention before. Its contents were partially revealed in 2009 during legal proceedings. Later, in 2015, the contact list was published on the website Gawker. It included Prince Andrew, who was later stripped of his royal titles, former New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg, musician Jimmy Buffett, and former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger. Epstein himself was arrested twice. His name first appeared in criminal reports in 2008, when he was found guilty of forcing child prostitution and raping a minor. Then the criminal got off with 13 months in custody with reduced conditions. For example, he could leave the place of detention and work in an office in downtown Palm Beach for up to 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. At the end of the term, he was released for a year of probation and then completely released from arrest. In 2019, he was detained again, however, this time on charges of human trafficking for the purpose of sexual exploitation. The victims of the monstrous businessman were exclusively minors, including girls of 14 years old. The newly published materials say Epstein referred to them as masseuses in his notes. At the moment, the names of 254 of them are known. However, the criminal did not have time to receive punishment. He was soon found dead in his cell. His accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, was later convicted on similar charges. She was sentenced to 20 years in prison.